Part of me sometimes wants to see how long people will stand, but you guys can sit down. We're going to continue with our message. Who are you encouraging today? Who are you encouraging today? This sermon series, this is the last week of our sermon series called The Next Chapter. And I just really want to put a little plug in with our next sermon series, which is called Unplugged. Okay? That was a good one. I'm pretty quick. All right, so when we start this sermon series, it's going to be about how there's power in resting, and how there's power in resting and stepping away from really what is going on in the world. Not that we are stepping away from the world, but we're focusing and getting refocused on what's important to us. So I want to really give a shout out for that, because that's going to be a really exciting, fun sermon series that I'm excited to talk about, because there are times in life where we need to rest, where we need to take a step back and stop falling for what the world wants us and going down this deep, dark hole. We're going to be able to unplug and really focus on God during that time. So again, that starts next week. Invite your friend and your neighbor, your coworker, whatever it is. Invite them to come and experience Christ like they've never experienced before. So this sermon series that we've gone through is, it's been something that's been quite obviously near and dear to me. We've gone through several things where I have felt like a failure that first week when we were talking, where I felt like a failure, and I came to a conclusion that I was a failure. I was a broken human being in need of a Savior. But the best thing ever, was the best news I have ever heard in my life, was that I was never too far gone for the love of Christ. I've said that every week. There's a reason for that. We need to realize that we are never too far gone for the love of Christ. And the next week we talked about obedience and the love that we have. The love that we have because of Christ and what He has done for us. And we realize that through our stories that we're sharing, it's because of the decisions that we made yesterday. The things that we've talked about, that we are so excited to talk about, is what we shared, or what we experienced and decided to do yesterday. And then we went through this whole thing about training a child. And I really was trying to let you know that I am passionate. And I care so much about sharing the gospel, because I witnessed in front of my eyes my sister passing away. And she experienced life. There were some that may have called and questioned if she was even a Christian. That's when I really experienced that we need to share the love of Christ with everyone. That's what training a child of the ways that they should go. That's what it's all about. And last week we talked about my father, Larry Jennis, the legend of Larry Jennis, and how he's the strongest human being I've ever met. But we really decided when we were talking last week, giving everything that we have to God. Work at it with all of our heart, as if we are working for the Lord and not for human masters. And today, you guys get to be introduced to Connie Jennis, my mother. Now, there are some things you need to know about my mother. My dad is kind of the opposite of my mom. My dad was strong, he didn't really have much empathy, and he wasn't really uplifting. He wasn't a strong encourager. Whenever my dad would talk to you, like when we're playing football, for instance, he would say, "Hey, you did this good, but you should have done this better." Now, my mom was the total opposite. She was so encouraging and uplifting. It's truly amazing what this lady has done. So she's getting close to her 70s, and I have witnessed her love and devotion all throughout my life. Such a fantastic human being, and I'm not just saying it because my mom. She is. She's my role model. I've experienced her with all 11 children, showing the love and the support and the care that she has. How does she do that? I don't know. I have 3 kids, and sometimes I struggle to share the love and patience with them. But she is someone that automatically knows where I am at. I'm going to speak specifically of me. She has always been an encourager. She will know where I'm at in my life, and somehow she'll just get a sense. It must be a mother's instincts. She'll call me out of the blue, and she said, Justin, I'm praying for you. How are you doing? And she's constantly reminding me that I am a child of God. Why does she do this? Because she's sharing the passion and the love that she has for us as kids. Just this past week, I just felt the urge to have to give my mom a call. And I was talking about, and I just called her up, and I could tell in her voice that she was off. That something was off in her mental, like something was off. She was down. And the next thing you know, she just breaks down. And she starts talking about my sister again. And she's like, I just don't know, Judd. She calls me Judd. I just don't know, Judd, if I said goodbye to Steph. I just don't know. And she went through this whole spiel that we heard a few weeks ago when she said, I don't know if I prayed enough. I don't know if she knew God, and she's just constantly working herself up over and over again. And she's like, I just don't know. I just don't know. And she's breaking down and she's crying. And finally, I had a chance to say something to my mom that I don't know if she's ever heard before. I said, Mom, you know what? I don't know if you've ever heard this, but you need to realize what you are to me. You have been such a strong encourager. You have reminded me over and over again that I am a child of Christ, that my identity, it doesn't belong with my failures, it doesn't belong with anything, that I am a child of Christ. And my mom's sobbing on the other side, and it chokes me up even just to think about it. She's like, nobody's ever said that to me before. And I had to remind her that my dad was always supportive financially, and he was making sure that he was going to pour into us work ethic. My mom is what really holds the family together. All 11 kids, I'm going to say specifically for me, she was at all of my basketball tournaments, all of my football games, the choir concerts, the band concerts. She was constantly there. But what was tough for her is we never asked what she thought of us. We always wanted to hear what my dad thought because he wasn't at everything. So I shared with her, I'm like, Mom, you have been there for everything. You were the same way with Stephanie. You loved her, you cared for her, and you reminded her that she was a child of God. But there are so many times in our life that we don't hear those things, do we? In fact, the psychologists, they say, if you hear something negative, you're going to focus all on those negative things. You could hear 27 positive things, but you're going to go back and you're going to be reminded of the 4 to 5 negative things that were told to you. It takes 5 put-ups, they say, to really even out the put-downs. So my question is, who are you encouraging today? There's so many times, and I'm going to, again, speak specifically. There's so many times in my life, the person that needs to be encouraged the most is the person that's looking back in the mirror. I know I'm not the only one. We see this all the time with even high schoolers, junior hires. If you're on social media, you're going to see so many selfies. You're going to see so many selfies with this person not wearing makeup, this girl that's not wearing makeup, and all she wants to hear is how pretty she is. We start this internal battle, and we just wonder how we're going to get through this. So who are you encouraging today? Because if you come here and you're feeling discouraged, I'm going to tell you, you're not the only one. People need to hear words of life and not words of death, words of sin. And that brings us to our reading for today. And it comes from Hebrews chapter 3, verses 13. but encourage one another daily, as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. Here ends the reading. Now, this book has many different authors. The book of Hebrews has many different authors. And this is where they found out, this book of Hebrews, that the second generation of the Christians, the people that were following Christ, that they called them the Way, the people that were following the Way started to kind of wander and go back to their Jewish traditions. So this book, which is, again, by many different authors, it's reminding that Christ is better than everything. And in this chapter, they're really going over that Christ is better than Moses. And for this Jewish population, that was something that was extremely hard to hear. Because the Jewish, they have so many traditions. And it's a very proud peoples. That when they hear that Christ is better than Moses, it's almost like they're screaming insults at them. These writers are reminding that Christ is better than anything. That Christ is better than anything. And right now we're living in a world of pandemic, right? This world that seems like it's never going to end. We're going to have to wear face masks for the rest of our lives. And I'm sorry for some of you, you have to wash your hands yet continuously. I hope that continues after the pandemic. But we're living in a pandemic, and we're witnessing a world that is divided. You witness, if you're looking on anything on social media, watching the news, you're seeing fights that are just breaking up out of nowhere because someone doesn't want to wear a mask. You're taking away our freedom. But the unfortunate thing is, that sprinkles down into the church, where people aren't unified. People aren't saying encouraging words. People are saying discouraging words and tearing each other down. There's a song out there. I'm going to step back. I'm not a good singer, so you might want to edit this out. There's a song that I just love. It's one of my favorite songs. And it's, you know we are Christians by our love. Right? You know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. Are we showing love? It scares me because I believe what we're showing is fighting what we're against. We're not sharing what we're for. We're not sharing the love of Christ, but instead we're fighting what we're against. And we're creating this division. This division that seems like we're never going to get out of, and it's nothing but hate that's yelling at another. It's truly insane, and it's so frustrating. So how are we encouraging one another? How are we building each other up? Words have life. It can speak life or it can speak death. What are you speaking into other people? Christ is better than the pandemic. Christ is better than masks or no masks. Why don't we highlight Christ? Why don't we highlight the love that God has for us? So instead of saying discouraging things and tearing one another down, how about we today, we make it a pact with ourselves, with your spouse, with whoever it is, and you start saying words of life. And start being reminded that Jesus will never leave us nor forsake us. So whatever we're going through, remember to speak life. Why? Because we don't know what the cashier is going through. We don't know what their life is like. If a cashier could experience such a bad thing, and all they're doing is just acting crabby, instead of being crabby back at them, maybe we need to encourage and share who Christ is. This is a challenge. We are reminded through these chapters, this sermon series, we need Christ, and we need to share Christ. Man, pandemic or not, churches are on a decline. And it scares me. Why are churches on a decline? You turn on the news and you see that there's people that are burning Bibles. They're burning the American flags. It almost is like we get more upset that people are kneeling or that people are burning flags than really burning a Bible. That's the Holy Scriptures. My challenge today is that we are encouraging people, that we are lifting each other up. But if you're one here that you just feel so broken and so discouraged that if you get any more discouraging news, you don't know what you're going to do. We need to be reminded that God has something for us. Shalane, if you can come forward. God has something for us. If you're looking in the mirror and you're wondering, how am I going to be able to speak life into somebody else when all I feel is I have death? We have a reminder in the Scriptures that God will never leave us nor forsake us, that God is fighting for us. That's your encouraging words. God is fighting for us. And through this song, we're going to be reminded on how much God loves us. So if you're struggling with being encouraged yourself, hear these words and just thank God. Give Him all the praises, because no matter what we're going through, God is here for us, and He's fighting for us each step of the way.